comparisons like the year 2006, what we budgeted for and what our actual expenses were. And again, these are only levied funds. There's no enterprise funds on here. So as of now, you haven't seen anything for electric, water, sewer, liquor. None of those funds are on here because there's no levy attached to it. So that you'll see some information on later. But we've got a history here of 06, 7, 8, 9, 10, and the pink is 2010. Since we're in that year right now, we can't tell you exactly what the actual expenses will be, but those are estimated numbers, what I think will end up, the expenses will end up being at the end of the year. And in some of those lines you can see where it's more than what we budgeted for. And that might be because we have a new grant that came in, or especially like on the airport fund, we decided to do new projects like the roofing project, so there's new grant money associated with that. So here you're only looking at the expense side. From the history is only the expense side, just to give you an idea of what we are spending the money on. Some of the other reasons for additional expenses would be if you authorized something that we hadn't planned to do before, like the firemen getting the ranger, at the building addition. You know, there's sources of funding for that, but it's not covering everything, so we have to kind of spread it out over a few years. Hiring the other part-time employee in the Public Works Department, those are things that weren't budgeted for, but we're allocating it now. And because General has so many different line items to it, that's down on the bottom section. There's all those, the other sections has all the disbursements for the general fund broken down. So the orangish part for budgeted expenses 2011 shows the proposed levy, a column for the levy, a column for LGA, and a column for other revenue. Other revenue might be grants, fees that we charge. What is that? Then further down on the bottom, you'll see the other revenue, like in the general fund, you can see it's things like the police, like state aid money for the police department, snow grant, building permit fees, lodging tax revenue, pool revenue. Those are the kind of things that are up in the other revenue side. And we've also anticipated a $15,000 transfer in from the liquor fund to the fire fund. Because changes are being made at the liquor store, and things are changes that will bring about good things and better revenue, we hope. So hopefully she'll be able to transfer money out of that fund into another fund that can use it. And there too you also have debt service funds are listed there also. Those funds may look like they're in the minus. The fund balance change column just shows you the difference between what the expenses expected to be, what the revenue is expected to be, and how the fund balance would change. Most of those debt service funds have a fund balance in it already, because that's the way debt service works, is you build it up in your last year of payment. You've already got money sitting in the fund to help you make that last year of payment, because we're retiring I think this year, 2 bonds will be paid off this year.
How many dollars a year does those 2 bonds account for? Approximately.
Well, if you look back on page 1, and you look at the actual levy of 2010, those you can see a couple columns there where there were amounts levied there, and they aren't levied in 2011. Those would be the bonds that are being paid off.
Overall, the debt service decreased by $22,000 in 2011 projected.
Yep. And sometimes bonds they're not always structured to be an even amount every year. Some bonds are structured to be a higher principal at the end or a higher principal at the beginning. It all depends on when we think we'll have the revenue. So these, it's not necessarily gonna be the same amount every year that gets levied in the debt service funds.
Let's talk a minute about the process so we know why we're doing what we're doing tonight. Tonight is by the 15th of September, cities have to communicate to their counties what the preliminary levy is for the next year. The county will then take and crunch those numbers for the next month or so, and somewhere around just before Thanksgiving, they will send you a new tax statement saying, based on the preliminary levy that this city has submitted, here is your taxes for 2011 payable. Okay? Between now and December, the date is December 28th, we have to certify it by?
Yeah.
Between now and December, we will have further work on the budget in terms of the numbers, where they go. We'll have an election to respond to in terms of, there's a definite difference as to how we'll probably analyze things depending on, without getting political, as to which candidate is elected. They have different stances on, for example, on LGA, whether they believe in it, don't believe in it, or fully believe in it. And then you'll also have just the idea of, we hope, several things from FEMA should sort themselves out, like the headworks building and other issues that we've applied for. Are we going to get paid, or is it going to be an expense that is, comes back to you? And certainly one of the ones that we're looking and keep searching for, one that you received a negative response on today, was the levy recertification effort for 2011, which requires the city at this point to match roughly the bonding dollars that might come from the state. So at any rate, as you look at page 1, what you're really assigned tonight to do is to send the county auditor a listing of the dollars that you as a city want to, on the preliminary levy, communicate to your citizens how much you're going to collect from them and the businesses that exist in this community. And that's a number of $763,000. And then they take that and make the tax statements, which then the public will have, and the public will show up here in December at a public meeting and talk to you about the budget and whether they believe this is good, bad, indifferent. Some years we've had nobody, some years we've had lots of money. So it's all relative. In the interim, as I said, we'll be working to look at the LGA in particular, because if that gets decreased further, which it very well could, that will severely impact. The other thing is, once you've set this number, you cannot go any higher. This is your maximum number that you can charge for the following year. You can go low, but you cannot go higher. And generally that's been the case. And not to pick on Rushford Village, but they had their session and they established a number that in effect took into account, they're so positive about LGA, they assumed that they all get cut. And so they put a levy commensurate with to replace that, which amounted to, I believe, around $30-some thousand or so for the village. And of course, if we were to do that, we'd have to set a levy for $582,000, and probably don't want to do that. So what you have in front of you is the best case breakdown as far as looking by funds. If you look on page 1 and just compare 2010 to 2011, for example, the levy is showing an increase of in the general fund from $252,000 up to $255,000, if everybody sees that. So it's about a $3,000 increase. The economic development was left the same. The library is up some, about $7,000. The debt service ones I won't go over because those are locked in by the debt payments that the bonding company sends us, and we must pay those. And you'll see that we've put some money back into the capital projects fund, which has been